This is the Razer Viper Ultimate, and it's a lot like the Lamborghini Huracan. I've been using it for about 2 weeks and I went from hating it to loving it. Let me explain. I'm going to start with the dimensions because that's what made me hate it in the first place. It's 57.6 millimeters wide, 126.8 millimeters long, and 37.8 millimeters tall. So kind of like the Lamborghini Huracan, it's low to the ground and long. Not that I hate the Huracan, because I don't. I love it. But I'm used to the Logitech G Pro Wireless, which is basically the same length, but taller, kind of like what the Lamborghini Urus is. Okay, I'll stop talking about cars for now. I just really wanted to get that bit in. Anyway, at first because I was used to the G Pro Wireless's height, when I moved over to the Viper Ultimate, it bothered me a little just because of how low it is. But one big benefit I noticed from the Viper Ultimate is that because it's lower, there's less wrist arching. So I'm able to play longer without stressing my wrist. If you don't know what I mean by that, put your arm on a flat surface and start moving your hand up like this while moving your fingers. The higher you go, the tighter your wrist feels, which is what I feel after playing a lot of hours straight on the G Pro Wireless, but not on the Viper Ultimate, making me really appreciate the Viper Ultimate's lower height. Keep in mind though, this is after I play like 8 hours straight, so if you take breaks in between, this isn't an issue for you in the first place. When it comes to the grip of the mouse, I was able to palm and claw grip this mouse for an entire day of constant use with ease without feeling any weird feeling or strain on my hand or my wrist. I can't say the same about fingertip grip though. It's not like it'll strain my hand or anything like that. It's just that the mouse is too long for my medium-sized hands to be able to comfortably fingertip grip for even a medium period of time. This is more for you large hand fellas. Next is weight. It's 74 grams, which is extremely light and 6 grams lighter than the G Pro Wireless. Can I feel the difference between the two? Surprisingly, yeah. Is the difference between this and the G Pro Wireless noticeable enough that it'll help in any meaningful way? Also surprisingly, yes. The reason for that is not only its weight, but also its weight distribution. The G Pro Wireless is very rear heavy, so when you move it, you really feel most of its 80 grams on your palm. The Viper Ultimate, on the other hand, feels like it has a 50-50 weight distribution. That's car talk for this mouse has the same weight in the front as it does in the rear, making it feel lighter than it actually is. Next, we have the sensor combined with the wireless tech. Razer calls its sensor the Focus Plus Optical Sensor, and it has a ton of features, as Razer calls it. Let's start with the smart tracking. Razer states that any mouse with a sensor automatically calibrates its sensor when you change surfaces, such as a new mouse pad, to eliminate liftoff distance, or LOD. Liftoff distance is a measurement of how far away your mouse needs to be away from your surface for your sensor to stop tracking. Mice that have a terrible LOD threshold are extremely frustrating because if you lift your mouse off of the surface and it's still tracking, your cursor or aim could be in a completely different position than when you lifted it off by the time you put your mouse back down. This is customizable in their Razer Synapse software where you can let the mouse figure it out, or you can tell it manually how many millimeters off the mouse pad you want to stop tracking. This isn't really an issue in any gaming mouse I've used in the past 5 years or so, whether it be a wired or a wireless mouse. Though it's nice that it's customizable, I've never adjusted it or felt the need to on this mouse or any of my other gaming mice. So this isn't really anything special to me, but might be to you if you're used to a mouse with bad LOD. Next is asymmetrical cutoff, which sets the landing tracking distance. In other words, just like you could tell the mouse how many millimeters it takes before it stops tracking when you lift it off the mouse pad, you could tell it when it starts tracking when you put it back down. Just like smart tracking, this is customizable. Though, again, I never needed to adjust it from its defaults with this mouse or any other gaming mouse. So again, useless to me. That doesn't mean it won't be useless to you. You might like it, but I 99% doubt that. Next is their motion sync, which is Razer's way of saying, hey, you know that mouse you have? The tracking sucks because it doesn't have motion sync. This is why I did air quotes earlier, because these features, even though they're not things that the user can always change if you own another brand of mice, mouse, meese, whatever you call it, these aren't typical issues in the first place, and it just sounds like Razer's marketing team is just spitting out a bunch of cool-sounding malarkey. What isn't nonsense though is this sensor itself, because it is bomb diggity. It lets you go as low as 100 DPI and as high as 20,000 DPI, which, by the way guys, even if you're not buying this mouse, don't let any manufacturer trick you into thinking that higher DPI is better. You will never want to use anything remotely close to 20,000 DPI unless you are intentionally making your life difficult. You'll have zero accuracy no matter what task you're doing. Anyway, the tracking is fantastic and extremely predictable because it has absolutely zero acceleration and smoothing. What's better though, the Viper Ultimate or the G Pro Wireless? Well, it's a tie. Basically, it feels identical to the G Pro Wireless. I can switch between the two mice and know exactly how much I need to pivot my arm or my wrist with no discrepancy. Quick note to all of you if you're not already familiar, this is not something manufacturers tell you, which they should. And surprisingly, I've told many people about this that also weren't familiar with this option, so I'm hoping this helps you. Just because you buy a mouse with no acceleration doesn't mean you're going to eliminate it as soon as you plug it in. Windows has a system-wide acceleration function enabled by default for whatever reason. To check if yours is on or off and to disable it, go to your Windows search function, type in mouse settings, open it, then click on additional mouse options, and then click on the pointer options tab to make sure enhanced pointer precision is off. This will turn off all acceleration and make it much easier to predict your mouse's movement, whether it's a crappy mouse or a mouse like this one. Anyway, back to the sensor. It has up to a 1000 Hz polling rate, which for those that don't know, polling rate is how often the sensor refreshes, kind of like how a 240 Hz monitor refreshes faster than your standard 60 Hz. For mice, usually the higher the better. 1000 Hz is standard on gaming mice though, so this isn't anything new or special. This is also helped by the awesome wireless tech that's packed into this mouse. It uses a 2.4 GHz signal, and Razer claims that it's 25% faster than any other wireless technology available, with a responsiveness of 195 microseconds from when you make an action versus when your computer executes that action. I'm not sure what they're comparing it to though, because as I mentioned earlier, accuracy and responsiveness felt and looked the same as my G Pro Wireless as seen on this very unscientific bad video quality slow motion video from my phone. Regardless, the technology and sensor packed into this thing is awesome, feeling identical to my HyperX Pulsefire Surge with one of the most precise sensors on the market. Next is the battery and charging situation. If you watched my review on the Logitech G305, which you can watch here, you'll remember me saying that I love these swappable batteries because with the G Pro Wireless, I always forgot to plug it in and charge it. This has become a non-issue with the Viper Ultimate. The battery lasts 70 hours per charge with the RGB lights turned off, which is perfectly fine. One thing I liked about this mouse is that you can adjust when it goes to sleep if you haven't moved your mouse for however many minutes, saving battery life further. There's also a low power mode which will kick in when your battery hits a certain percentage. This will reduce tracking speed and sensor acceleration to preserve battery life in dire moments. Another cool thing I noticed is that when your battery is at 5%, the logo and ring around the charging dock will breathe red to tell you that the battery is almost dead and that you need to charge. Which brings me to the charging situation. Like I just mentioned, the charging dock has RGB going all around it, typical Razer, and you can have it match the RGB of the mouse or have them be completely different from one another. However, that's nowhere near my favorite thing about the charging dock. My favorite thing is just how easy it is to charge. You can grab the cable and plug it in directly to the mouse like the G Pro Wireless, or when you're done playing for the day, just place the mouse on the charging dock and it'll be fully charged the next morning waiting for you to start handing out free haircuts again. Just make sure you're not an idiot like me and try to force the cable into the dock upside down, even though it looked right in the beginning. The cable actually says top on it. Anyway, this made me love rechargeable mice all over again because I always forgot to plug in the G Pro Wireless when I was done. This is kind of hard to do with this cool, impossible not to notice RGB charging dock right in front of your face. Also, on the subject of the charging dock, this mouse is $130 by itself and $150 with the dock. Spend the extra $20 and get the dock. You will not regret it. Next are the buttons on the mouse. Razer claims that there are 8 buttons on this mouse. While that's technically true, there's realistically 7. There's a left and right mouse button, 2 buttons on each side of the mouse, and a scroll wheel click. Okay, well, where's the 8th button then? Well, that would be the DPI switcher on the bottom. And while yes, that's technically a button, you're not going to be pressing that a whole lot. All 8 buttons are fully customizable to whatever your heart desires. The buttons themselves feel very solid. They have a very masculine sound compared to the G Pro Wireless's tinny clicks. Though, with that said, it is easier to click the left and right mouse buttons on the G Pro Wireless. That's not to say that the Viper Ultimate requires a lot of force, because it doesn't, just a little bit more. This also applies to the scroll wheel of the Viper Ultimate. It's stiffer than a G Pro Wireless's extremely loose and easy to move scroll wheel, but that could be a benefit or a negative depending on how you look at it. Moving on to the side buttons. At first, I didn't like them because they're recessed and I use them for leaning left and right in every game that has a leaning mechanic. It's a little harder to press than the G Pro Wireless's mouse, which pop out of the mouse. However, being that the Viper's side buttons are recessed meant that I never once accidentally pressed them when browsing the internet, which happens a lot more often than I would like on the G Pro Wireless. So it has its pros. Another pro is that the mouse is symmetrical, so the left-handed Elite will be very happy with this. Good move, Razer. Next is build quality, and this is the part that I'm skeptical on. It's rated for 70 million clicks and feels very solid, made out of nice plastics. However, I've owned a lot of Razer products in the past and they didn't last. I'm not even rough with my products, I take care of my stuff. My previous Razer products just loved falling apart, I have no clue why. So we'll see how this handles over time. Clearly, that didn't stop me from getting this mouse because I have one and because I as a consumer understand that manufacturers eventually fix things that they were once weak on in the past. I decided to give Razer another shot and I'm just hoping that this mouse does not fall apart before the end of the year. Now, this video has been long enough and I'm really hoping that I didn't miss anything, which, let's be honest, I probably did. But to finally conclude and end this video, what do I think of the Razer Viper Ultimate and do I think you should get one? Well, the sensor and responsiveness is amazeballs, and it's extremely light, making it a top choice for competitive and professional gamers. It feels nice to the touch and looks great, has a ton of customizability, which, let's be honest, they're mostly gimmicks, but the ones that aren't are great. Has solid battery life with a great charging method to where you will have to try to forget to charge it. And if you haven't figured it out already, you should definitely be getting this mouse, whether you're a professional player, a competitive gamer, an aspiring professional, or even just a casual pleb. But should you get it over the G Pro Wireless? Personally, I think so. A lot of the small things and attention to detail that went into making this mouse overall make this a better package. Thanks for sticking around for the end of the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider smashing that red subscribe button to support the channel. I'll love you forever. Tell me down below in the comments if you're gonna get this or if you think it's stupid and overpriced. Also follow me on my socials, which are down below in the pinned comment and in the description. And consider supporting me on Patreon. Anyway, have a great day, every day. Peace. Don't let any manufacturer trick you into thinking that higher DPI is better. You will never... Ugh, what the